Well, I'm delighted to have joining me on the London Theatre Review now, Rufus Norris, Artistic Director and Joint CEO of the National Theatre. Rufus, welcome.
Thank you very much, Nick. Lovely to be here.
You recently announced your final season as Artistic Director of the National Theatre after 10 years. You're standing down next year in favour of Indy Rubisingham, who you're working alongside at the moment. Is that correct?
That's right, yes.
Right. So let's unpack the final season. What's in it? What does it mean to you? What's it all about?
What's it all about? Well, as ever, we try and put together a bunch of plays and shows, which mean it's all for our audience, which means that people have got a range of work that they can come and see, depending on their different tastes. So, if I start in the Littleton, we're kicking off with Alterations, which is a play written in 1979, I think, by a writer called Michael Abinset. It's not that well known now, though at the time he was very prolific on stage and on screen, and was very much a sort of figurehead of the British Caribbean population. And really, if you look at Alfred Fagan and Michael Abinset's one or two others, those are the sort of shoulders on whom Roy Williams, Clint Dyer, various others stand these days. His name and reputation has fallen away a bit, so it's a great opportunity to bring back one of his plays and reintroduce that into the canon. It was dug out from our Black Plays archive, which is part of the NT archive by Clint Dyer and Cobner Holbrook Smith a few years ago. And Lynette Linton, who I was very keen to get back, took her shine to it. Very delighted that Ariza Kane has come on board to lead that company, and looking forward to that enormously. So that's going to kick us off. Then we've got a special treat for all the musicals fans. Stephen Sondheim, very much regarded as the NT as his sort of second home, or certainly his home in the UK. And Here We Are was his final musical, written with David Ives, and directed by Joe Mantello. It was on at the Shed last year, and it feels very appropriate that we give it its first sort of international outing.
It's a hell of a coup to get that, obviously. Did Sondheim want it to come to the National?
He did, yes. The way they I don't think this is unusual. The way they created it was almost with the Littleton Theatre in mind. So the various people involved in it, obviously, I knew Stephen, and we had a close relationship with him because of all the shows that we've done of his. So I was in contact with them shortly after his tragic passing, and spoke with various people, and was given a heads up quite early on that this one was possibly in the pipe. It took a little while to get going, but we stayed across it all the way through, and delighted to be able to present it.
Yes. Yeah.
And then the final one in the Littleton of my tenure is a play called Inter Alia, which many of you will know the brilliant work Prima Facie that was took the London theatre world by storm last year or the year before. And Susie Miller has written another play to be directed by Justin Martin, who directed Prima Facie. It's the same creative team, actually. It's still in the realm of the law, but it takes as its central character a judge who finds her personal and professional lives conflicted. It's not a one-woman show this time. It is quite different from Prima Facie, but it's shaping up beautifully, and Rosamund Pike will be playing the lead role.
In her national debut, is that right?
Do you know what? I think it is. Yes, yeah. I remember seeing her on stage at the Royal Court many, many years ago.
Yes, Hitchcock Blonde.
Yes, that was it. So it's wonderful to be able to, she's such an incredible actor, and really wonderful to be able to bring her back to the stage. And then moving across to the Olivier, we've actually got 3 shows coming back, though in very different ways. Dear England was a huge hit last year and transferred to the West End. Tens of thousands of people who'd never been to the theatre before came to see that, obviously, for its subject matter.
It was extraordinary seeing it at the National, but then walking through Soho and seeing the queues outside that every night. It was amazing.
All these football fans going in and absolutely loving it.
Yeah.
I actually watched a performance during an England match, and so everybody was kind of checking on their phones. So the whispers were going around of what the script was. One of the ones we won.
Yes, very good.
But but yes, it packed out in the West End, definitely got another audience. And James Graham and Rupert Gould are reworking it, I think probably quite subtly to make sure it wraps around the whole of Gareth Southgate's tenure. Because obviously his resignation came after that run. Nye is coming back. It was a huge hit for us last year with Michael Sheen, and that will be going to the Wells Millennium Centre in Cardiff as well. And in between those, we've got a short run of London Road, which we first did in 2011.
Yeah. That was the sort of start of your relationship with the National, wasn't it? Was that your National Theatre debut or not quite?
Not quite. My National Theatre debut was a show that you interviewed me around, actually, which was Market Boy.
Yes, of course.
With David Eldridge in 2006.
Right.
But London Road was a pivotal one because following it, Nick Heitner asked me to become an associate at the National, so it sort of stepped up my engagement with the organisation.
And of course, I know we haven't finished with the Olivier, but the relationship with David Eldridge reaches a sort of summation in this season, doesn't it?
Yes. So just to jump to that, the final show of my tenure is a play called End by David Eldridge, to be directed by Rachel O'Riordan, which completes his trilogy, beginning, middle, and end. And there is a poetry. Yes, I started at the National with David, and I'll finish with David.
Very nice.
With an end.
Nice symmetry to it.
Yeah,
yes.
there is.
Yeah.
So that's the Olivier with those three shows: Dear England, London Road, then Nye, and then moving into the Dorfman. The Dorfman's going to have a period of renovation, but it will reopen with the 30th anniversary of the Connections Festival, which will be a fantastic way to open it up again with all those youth theatres and schools groups coming in. And then I'm really delighted that in the final season there's a debut play, and that's a play called The Estate by a brilliant young writer called Shan Sahota, starring the wonderful Adil Akhtar. So that I think will be very funny, very entertaining story of a politician who comes up against his British Asian patriarchal background, and also his very English school day background, to hugely comic effect. And that will be followed by The Land of the Living, which is a play by David Lann, directed by Stephen Daldry, with Juliet Stevenson taking the lead role of a woman who is kind of forced to revisit her youth when, as a 20-year-old, she went into the aftermath of World War II, into that chaos. Yeah. And then David Eldridge's End will wrap it up.
Very good. And there does seem to be, certainly from an external perspective, a sense of sort of summing things up after 10 years and of sort of tying up relationships. You know, obviously the posthumous one with Sondheim, the one with David Eldridge, as we said, bringing people back whose careers you brought on at the National. Were you consciously trying to do that, trying to sort of set a mark on your decade in charge?
No, not really. It's one of those things where you can always have an idea about what you want a programme to do, but we're entirely dependent on the artists. I never expected David Lann to turn up and give me a play, and neither did I expect to read it and go, oh, no, actually this is fascinating. Right. Of course, I'm delighted to get Stephen Daldry back into the building. That will be the first time for a very long time. But it's just the way it goes. Sian came up with her play. I was thrilled by it. I suppose the one that I've been looking for the best timing to bring back London Road, really since we did it. It was a seminal piece for me, but it's also a very groundbreaking piece of musical theatre. But the time is
for
never
those
quite.
who haven't seen it, it was by Lecky Blythe. It was it was a sort of verbatim piece of musical theatre, wasn't it? About
Lecky Blythe and Adam Cork. So it was. It tells the story of a community who live on a road called London Road, and on that road lives another person, a man called Stephen Wright, who is the convicted murderer of several young women in the Ipswich area back in 2006, I think 2007. Sorry, and I'm not sure about that date. It might be 2008. Forgive me, but Alaki is a verbatim artist who she doesn't write a word. She just interviews people and has an incredible knack of getting them to open up to her. And she visited Ipswich regularly across that period and got to know many of the residents on that road who had experienced a pretty torrid time because of the invasion of press and police and all the rest of it. And it's really a story about how a community can reform itself.
Yes.
In the face of tragedy.